Yeah. Why do you think, I'm from North Carolina, James Taylor's from North Carolina. He's maintained such a relationship to an audience that sort of came up at the same time that he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about James that you think has made...
Because he's very genuine and he's very humble and he's a really excellent singer and musician, and people recognize all of that.
And you will hear those songs, Sweet Baby James and all those songs, constantly.
Yeah.
You know, you still hear them. Whenever they play oldies, I mean, you always hear more Taylor songs almost and King songs than anybody else I can think of.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
When you... songwriting come easy?
Sometimes, and sometimes not.
How do you know? I mean, what do you feel it and it just gushes out, or?
Sometimes and sometimes not. No, it's really different. People ask, how do you write a song? What comes first, the music or the lyrics? Every song, like every human being on this earth, is different. And the way, some of them, like You've Got a Friend, just sort of came to me. And other songs, I have to work really hard to write.
How did You've Got a Friend come to you?
I was sitting at a piano, and I was working mostly with James at the time, and I don't know that I especially wrote it for him. It was a general feeling, but it just sort of came out the way, almost the way you hear it. And I didn't.
Who were you thinking of?
I wasn't thinking of a specific person. It was almost as if something was writing through me, rather than me writing it. And I just wanted to make sure that I got it and could remember it and do it again, and I've had the pleasure of doing it again. That is one of the songs I never get tired of doing.
Yeah, and can you do a performance without doing it? I mean, I would think, maybe
no,
not
but
wanting to.
I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, is it the signature that you save that for the end in a performance?
It's not necessarily the end, it's usually close to the end, but it's a moment that brings people together. If people have had a fight before the performance, I've heard this, you know, they forget it for the moments of that song and they come together, and maybe at the end they forget the fight, let's hope.
Tapestry sold 22 million copies. Yeah. How did that change things for you?
Well, for one thing...
you made some money.
Yeah, it gave me the financial security to be able to do what I want to do in life, and I've been very lucky that way. For another thing, it touched a lot of people's lives, and I am still hearing from people about how they heard that when they were breaking up or meeting their husband. I've heard about children that were born due to natural woman. It's great. I
Make out music?
You got it.
But do we have songs like ballads like that today? Who's recording those kind of ballads today?
I don't really know. I mean, I think it's a different thing. I suppose Toni Braxton, Whitney Houston. Yeah. Toni Braxton has some really nice stuff out. There are romantic ballads out today. I think today music covers the entire spectrum, and you might turn on MTV. I'm not assuming
come on, you're
whether
at home
you
watching MTV, yes.
Well,
or I am, yes.
But you know, when you turn on MTV,
what did you start to say? You're not assuming that I would be watching?
Not necessarily. Yeah. You have so many interests.
Yeah, right.
But you'll see a more narrow perspective, maybe, of what music is. But people are listening to all kinds of music, which is great. Because when I was first starting to write, it was either, you know, the make-believe ballroom kind of music, you know, very strictly pop, or it was this upstart rock and roll, and there was, and then of course there was country, and there was probably R&B in its little fledgling mode, but they were very regionalized. Now, all across the country, you can hear any kind of music you want. Yeah, it's great.
Let me let this conversation end without talking about the environment and what's, you know, where is your agenda for the environment now? I know you've testified before Congress, and you've...
Yes, I have, and obviously my work with Congress has sort of been on hold while I'm doing Blood Brothers. I hope they'll come and see me. In fact, one congressman sent a note that he did come, so that's nice. But I'm working to save, in particular, the wilderness in the Northern Rockies, because I've lived in Idaho, and I know the economics, I know the beauty of the country, and...
And how is it threatened?
It's threatened by industry, which has enough private land of its own to log their lands, but they can log the public lands at the taxpayer's expense, and as long as they can get away with doing that, they will. And our national forests are threatened by clear cutting, by, you know, just waste of this resource, because they can do it. And the tendency in Congress is not to even be aware of that, except for those members in that area who are generally, you know, more inclined towards industry.
Has environmental policy changed significantly in the switch from a Republican to a Democratic administration? honestly, or do you think it has?
I don't think it's not changed significantly
Much
enough for me, I'd like to say.
Yeah.
I think there's just generally more awareness happening. I don't know if it's directly related to Mr. Clinton's administration or not. I know that when Mr. Gore was a senator, he was very active in it.
And then he wrote a book.
Yes, and I'd like to see more changes, and I'd like to see less of an effort to compromise. I think the compromises have already been made long ago, and we need just to save as much of it as possible. And it's economically beneficial, too. The myth is that we'll throw all these poor people out of work, but there are other economies that are more long-lasting and not destructive.
Okay. Carole King, Blood Brothers, we're going to run for I don't know how long.
Oh, forever.
Forever. and you're having a great time. You love being there.
I'm having a ball. Come see Blood Brothers.
All right. And Carole King in Concert is an album. And there's another album which is called,
Color of Your Dreams, which we
Dreams.
don't have to show, but it's my latest studio album.
Okay.
Slash plays on it with me, Slash of Guns N' Roses.
Speaking
of MTV.
Yes. Speaking of David
So
Geffen.
check that out.
Yes. Thank you for coming. Great
Thank
to see
you, Charlie. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure. We thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you again on Monday. See you then.